Hello and welcome to this week's review on Dragon Ball Daima. This week I'm reviewing the episode titled Thieves, and we kick off this review as we always do with these reviews by talking about the positives, all the things I enjoyed about this particular episode. And we kick off the positives with the headline positives, all the things I enjoyed about it in more detail. Kicking off, I thought that the action in this episode got better as the episode went along. I liked the enjoyment of Vegeta and the others, and I really liked that grand cliffhanger at the end of the episode. Now, I will admit saying the action got better is gonna sound like damning with faint praise in the most extreme form, but it frankly did. Look, I'm not gonna rag on this episode because quite frankly, as a whole entity, I really did enjoy it, and I've been enjoying Daima for the most part. I have to say is that the first action sequence that we got in this episode, whilst good and in another series will be perfectly fine and perfectly serviceable, in this particular episode and this particular series, I will admit it wasn't quite up to snuff compared to some of the stuff we had recently. I mean, it was fine, broadly fine. Again, had it been in just about any other series, it would have been perfectly serviceable, perfectly good, but here it felt as though it was airing into more cliched anime action territory, which, again, while serviceable is something I'm not really keen on, certainly not given certain other series I've been seeing over the past 18 months or so. When you have a fight sequence ultimate boils down to a bunch of people flying about and going plink, plink, plonk, ain't really for me, but that got far better when we started to get Vegeta and the others coming into the swing of things. Now, I will discuss my feelings on their involvement in this particular episode in greater detail just shortly. What I will just say is that that action sequence we got towards the end of the episode with Vegeta and Piccolo getting rid of those ne'er-do-wells was just brilliant. It was on par with everything that I want with this series, particularly when it comes to the action side of things. The action had a fluidity, a skill and power that made it an exciting fight. Sure, we knew who was going to win, but given the just flair that we ended up seeing here, it made it more than worth the price of entry, so to speak. And it does go to show just how different a fighter Vegeta is to Goku, and how much better of a fighter he is versus Goku, at least from a martial arts sense of it. We'll compare these two fight sequences that we get, the fight sequence with Vegeta dealing with these ne'er-do-wells here and now, and the earlier fight that we get earlier on in the series where Goku's in the bar fight. Yes, the circumstances are slightly different, but in the way the two of them carry themselves and the way both of them fight, it shows that Vegeta is just more of a skilled fighter, which does explain the ending that we get in the Dragon Ball superhero movie from a few years ago at this point. And it does go some way to help to establish them as being very different characters and very different fighters within their own right. And it does it in a way which ends up feeling rather fresh. It does it in a way which makes it feel as though these two genuinely are just different fighters, different combatants, in a way that the rest of the series as a whole entity has never really been able to do. This isn't a knock for the wider series, because, let's be honest, one of the big reasons to why this series is as good as it is, at least from an animation point of view, is because the animation team behind it actually had time with which to make all of this. They had, what, 2-3 years to work on all of this, so it's not surprising that week in, week out, we're almost getting cinema quality action sequences when, you know, compare it to some of the stuff that we had in Super, yeah, it's night and day here. But still, the action sequence itself goes some way to have some personality to it, in a way that makes it beyond just it being another action sequence for the sake of being an action sequence. If you didn't know much about Dragon Ball as a whole entity before this fight sequence came along, but you have been watching Daima up until this point, this does, like I say, give us an idea as to how different Vegeta is as a fighter versus Goku. There's a greater sense of method there in the way that he actually acts and performs. The animation as a whole, much like the action itself, got stronger as the episode itself went along. My favourite sequence within all of this is that bit midway through the episode where we get Goma and What's-His-Face, you know, the brother of the Supreme Kai, and they're there in Goma's office, and Goma is just throwing an absolute wobbler over the fact that Goku and his friends are after the Dragon Balls, and they're actually in the demon realm, and they're doing stuff now, and just how much that's freaking Goma out. Like, just that sheer rant and just mad little the bit that he has is just really fun for what it is. And it's not just him going cartoonishly ranting crazy, it's also just the physical presence that we have with the Supreme Kai's brother. It just shows just how very different his personality is versus his sister and his brother and Goma. And he has a presence that feels smaller and meeker and a lot more put upon than maybe we're expecting. I mean, it does harken back to the first episode in this series where, or rather this particular season I should say, where we see him and he's a little bit more of a fop, a little bit more of a bungler, a little bit more of a sidekick to Goma, more so than it is the kind of darker presence that more recent episodes have hinted that he may end up being. So showing him in this light, it's interesting, because as an audience it leaves us asking, which is the true version here? Is he actually this super clever manipulator, this mastermind that's trying to get on Goma's good side and make him seem like he's more of a meek fop than he really is? Or is he still a bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy in the same way that his sister is, or some of the other villains are? I mean, it's an interesting set of circumstances. I want to just see how it evolves and grows with time. The one thing that I do pick up with this whole rant that Goma goes on is that, well, what was he expecting here? I mean, seriously, what the hell was he expecting? Like, he's acting as though these guys wouldn't do anything to try and save their friend and undo all the weird Dragon Ball damage that's been done to them. I mean, sure, Goma had no way in knowing that they had a means with which to get to the demon realm, but he seems to think that they were so totally lacking in any agency that they'd all just sit back and go, well, that's a bit of a bitch. Oh well, time to go through my entire life again. What? I mean, seriously, he wasn't expecting that they might try to do something? I mean, the whole reason why he did this in the first place was to stop them doing something. Now they're doing something because he forced their hand into doing something. Maybe he'll realise it later on that maybe he should have left well enough alone, but at the end of the day, he's still dealing with people that killed Majin Buu, or at least the evil part of him, so of course they were going to be a little more proactive than just sitting back and just counting their fingers, for goodness sake. Like, again, that whole sequence, how it's animated, just the sheer character and how fluid the animation is with all of that, just makes it feel really great and really interesting, and I just love the way they ended up all looking here. An aspect of this episode that I really do like, which might seem minor, but I think it has greater significance, a lot of people are really going to end up giving it, is that sequence when they're all there in the room and they're deciding, right, what they're going to do, how they're going to hide the Dragon Ball, and you get Goku suggesting, oh, I'll keep guard of it overnight. And there's that look that Glorio gives him, which seems to suggest to me that he had other plans that night, and I don't mean in the sense he was planning to go out having a few bevies down in the bar. I mean in the sense he was hoping that someone else was going to come along and steal it. Because it's not too long after that that we end up having the little sequence where, like I say, Goma and What's-His-Face have the big rant in the office. So it makes it feel to me that, well, there's something very suspicious about that look. It says so much without saying anything at all. It is very much one of those show don't tell kind of things, because it's the pause before Glorio gives his answer to Goku, which I think is the most telling thing, that he actually wanted it to get stolen because he wants it to find its way into the hands of Arinsu and the others. Whether that or not is the case, well, I'm soon finding out, because it is clear that he is definitely working for them. Whether or not he was hoping for it to be stolen in this actual specific instance, we can't definitively say, and I don't think we're going to get some kind of thing of, oh, Glorio was behind it all along, and here's a little montage of all the ways it was screwing people over the past few episodes. As neat as that would be, I don't think we're going to get anything like that as a confirmation. Though still, I do get this feeling that we're going to get a lot of people in a few weeks' time, in the event that Glorio does turn out to be a secret villain, that you're getting a lot of people online going, oh my god, I can't believe Glorio was a villain, despite all the clues and the hints that he was up to no good over the past 12 weeks or so. I mean, seriously, at this point, it really is eyes on Burke territory. He's definitely up to something, whether or not he has some greater game here, whether he's planning to play off the different villains against themselves for profit, or he's going to secretly turn around and actually be a good guy all along. I don't know, but certainly in this instance, he's got his own plans and they might not necessarily align with our heroes. With all that said, however, back to the stuff with Vegeta and the others, I am glad that we got a subversion of a subversion. we had them coming out their little hotel thing in their little part of the demon realm, and oh no, their ship has been captured, just like what happened with Goku and the others. And then Goku and the others show up, and oh, we can't take you on the ship, you'll just have to find your own way or wait for another ship. And I was just thinking to myself, oh, for fuck's sake, they're writing them out again. They're just going to be not in the show for another few episodes again. Seriously? This is the direction that we're going with it? Because when you first see them coming into this, when you first get that confirmation that they're going to be here and they're going to be active, that, oh, great, now this is the moment we're all going to join together, we're all going to go on this big adventure together. Oh, no, they've lost their ship. Oh, dear, but now they're all going to get into the same ship and there's going to be silly shenanigans and fun they're in. Okay, great. But then we get the thing of, oh, you guys can go off, you can just wait here. And it definitely felt like, oh, Christ, we're really doing this. Because at that point, and it just been a case of they're going to have to sit around and wait. I think at that point it was just a case of, okay, why the hell did you bother writing these guys into this series at all? Because we're almost 10 episodes into it, and at that moment they hadn't done anything apart from periodically appear in the background with Vegeta and Piccolo looking a bit grumpy. And now, thankfully, we did get a great action sequence with them, and then they did actually end up getting their ship back. Or at least we hope they will, because they defeated the ne'er-do-wells that stole it, so I guess now that it's going to be smooth sailing, and they're going to go off to the first demon realm to deal with things. Sure, great, good. Now they can actually do that stuff, and I'm happy about all of that. I have to say that the little action sequence we got with Vegeta, even having the fight in the nightclub, I liked it. It was short, it was sweet, it was significant, it was fun. And something I really did like about it is all the little rim lighting stuff that they were doing with the different people in the bar, where you had the light just on the edges of them. It just really made it look like there were more there. And in the back of my head, I could just imagine that being done in a different series, or just in Super, where you just have people tinted a different colour and that would be it. It just go to show the sheer amount of effort that's been put into animating all of this, and that whole sequence does show once again, a bit of a mirror between Goku's adventure and Vegeta and the others' adventure. Goku ends up in this kind of crummy little pub somewhere, and Vegeta and the others end up in this swish-looking kind of demon nightclub with just the same kind of ne'er-do-wells and roustabouts you'd come to expect at this point. And again, I really did like that, and I like that little banter stuff that we get with them all waiting for this new ship, or waiting for Goku and the others coming along. And yeah, it's fun, it was good, I really did like all that stuff. I do have a feeling that the eye that Hybis, or whatever his name is, has in his belt is going to come into play in greater significance later on. Like something like that. I don't know. With Akira Toriyama's stuff, this is either just a neat little thing that you thought of and it's like, hey everybody, look at this, isn't this cool? Or alternatively, it's a case of eyes on the eye, because it's going to turn out that this is the evil third eye thing that Goma's after. Whether or not we'll see that, I don't really know, but we'll soon see as all that's concerned. Of course, when we get to the stuff with Vegeta, we do get that second major action sequence I've already talked at length about, but hey, there's something about it I just kind of found weird, like it's kind of humorous. Like, these guys are coming back to beat up these kids that beat them up the night before, and it's like, oh boy, you kids are really in for it now. We got a fat guy dressed as a bumblebee and a horse with boxing gloves on. Oh, you're really in for it now. Oh, I know you kicked our ass last night, but you're in for it now because I've got gardening implements. Oh, and then it leads into the action sequences, fun, and yes, I wish Piccolo did a little bit more, but hey, it was Vegeta's time to shine, to illustrate what a different fighter is versus Goku, and I like that. I really did like that, and they got their ship back, or at least I hope they're definitely going to get their ship back, and there's going to be no other unforeseen circumstances that's going to stop them from doing that, because at this point, like I said, you know what, I don't want them to be delayed anymore. I want to see them doing stuff. I want to see them being more of an active participant in all of this, rather than something we just hop back to every now and again. And the little preview thing that we saw towards the end of this episode suggests that they do, so that's great, that's good. They're actually going to start contributing to the adventure at last. Sure, some people might not be best pleased at the fact we're now splitting them off into two separate groups, having their own little adventures, but given how short this series is, I can understand it. It makes sense as far as an efficiency's sake is, that we're not going to just drag things out, or worse, we're going to expedite the final 10 episodes just so that we can do everything, even though it does feel like there's an element of that now, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But hey, it is what it is, and we might get further explorations and adventures in the Demon Realm at some point in the future anyway. With all that said, let us take the moment to talk about the new Margin. Margin Coup! More like Margin Cow! Yes, here we are, a new Margin for a new era, one that's slightly less marketable than Margin Buu. Margin Coup, who looks like one of the dragons from GT, made with the super special secret ingredients, that extra herb and spice that the Colonel's been keeping away from us from KFC for all so many years, a Cyberman seed. There's a callback there that I'm sure that a certain slice of the audience is really going to like, and some people are going to find really unstomachable, but still, whatever. I thought it was a neat little thing. Yes, there is a little bit of the case of making the universe feel smaller, bearing in mind we're having such a heavy reference to something from Z, but hey, it's fine. And of all the things I have wrong with that whole sequence of events, it's the least of it. I will admit that I'm not terribly wild for the design of Margin Coup. I mean, I commend it for being new. I commend it for being something different and not just a different colour of Margin Buu or one that just looks like it has a slightly different antenna. It is its own entity. It looks like its own thing, and hooray, congratulations for anyone that plays the Dragon Ball Xenoverse games, because you might be getting some new character design options. And, but with that said, it does kind of look like a fairly generic Akira Toriyama design. It looks like I say, like the dragon, one of the dragon villains from GT. It looks a bit like Peacon. It looks like any number of villains that Akira Toriyama had made over his career, which, you know, it's nice to see get a bit of a callback. I'm sure that his design will evolve and change as the adventure itself progresses. We'll soon see, but there's a part of me that can't help but sit there and go, hang on a minute, though. Cybermen are known for exploding, so is that going to come into play again? Are we going to get anything similar to the whole stuff with Cell, or even just the stuff that we got with Yamcha and the Cybermen way back in the day? I sense a certain sense of foreboding. We'll soon see where all that goes later on. Arinsu is sending him to go get the 1-star ball from the first realm of the Demon Realm, which is... well, on the one hand, I do suppose it's going to limit our interactions with the first Demon Realm, and it might well lead to a bunch of chaos and destruction that only the Demon Realm Dragon Balls can undo, which we'll soon see where all that ends up going. I got a feeling that maybe the wish on these Dragon Balls will be used to save the Demon Realm more than anything else, but we'll soon see as where all that's concerned. I'm interested to see how all that squares itself, bearing in mind that it seems that Vegeta and the others are also going to the first Demon Realm, so... maybe Vegeta will have the first running with it, or he'll find the aftermath when one of the Tegigamis had been smashed to pieces by Margin Coup. We'll soon see about all of that. We'll see. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are hoping that maybe Margin Coup is killed off so that we can get a more interesting Margin design coming forward. We'll soon see about all of that, because I know there have been some theories as to how all of this might end up shaking out later. Well, that said, however, let us get into the negatives, and it's only a minor one, a little bit of a nitpick, but one I have to point out all the same. Something I didn't like about this episode is the strange fade to black that we ended up getting before and after Vegeta's little flashback sequence, always thinking back to what happened in the nightclub. I really don't know why it was done like that. Like, of all the ways that you can pivot into and out of a flashback, that's the way that they picked. It just feels really disarming. Like, it felt as though we were going to pivot into something darker, or that maybe there was some kind of problem there. There's a part of me that made me think that that whole flashback sequence might have been an insert. Like, eventually, it might have just been like a little gag of, ho ho ho, we had the same problem as Goku and the others had, and that was it. And then they decided, actually, let's add a little bit of thing in here to just put it in. But they didn't know how to edit it properly, so that's a decision they came up with. Again, minor issue, not going to hold it against the episode, because otherwise the episode itself is good. So with that being said, let's get into the overview and just say that this was a very fun episode, a great episode. I know that pacing is a problem for a lot of people when it comes to Dragon Ball Daima. Though I will say is that there is at least 3 elements in this episode that, had this been an episode of original Dragon Ball, they'd have easily been their own episode, if not 4. You'd have had an episode with Goku and the others trying to stop the thieves. You'd have all the stuff with Vegeta and the others trying to get their shit back. You would have had the stuff with Arinsu and Margin Coup, and you might well have had an entire episode centered around the zombie game. So, you know, let's be thankful for small mercies here. With all that said, however, let's get into Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner. I will admit that I'm rushing things a bit because I'm very conscious of time and also the fact my dinner's getting cold. So with that said, let us get into Comment Corner and we'll kick off as we always do with our one and only comment from Big X1 that says, I'm disappointed with that the fight didn't go on longer. This is of course referring to last week's episode Tamagami. The review with RNC was cool. I wanted to see where they go with it. Thank you for your comment. And well, we're getting to see this week because now we got Majin Ku. Ooh, let's see what wacky shenanigans this plucky youngster gets up to. I hope he has a little bit of personality because at this point I'm worried that he might be a little bit too much of a blank slate, but I've got a feeling that he's not going to be the big bad that everyone's fighting in the end. Well, that's said and done. However, let us just say thank you all for watching, thank you for all listening. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode of Dragon Ball Daima down below, and you'll be read out in a future video. Well, that's said and done. Thank you all for listening, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!